All right, welcome to the sales meeting today. It's Tuesday, our favorite day of the week, another day of quarantine, so we're doing this all from the privacy of our own homes. So we've got a great meeting on tap for you guys today. We're going to start off with our mortgage moment with Prosperity Lending, followed up by the Spirit of Signature Award that will be presented by Ellie Morris, one of the members of our Associate Council. And then we'll have Janet Carpenter give some stuff from Janet, followed by the sales tip with Chris Bishop, and then some interesting discussion topic, which will be the new listing agreement that went out this week. Will be presented and gone over by Vandana with some discussion with me and Chris. And then to wrap up the meeting, we're going to have Alex Szinegh from Signature International on how to get out of a rut. So with that being said, let's start off with our mortgage moment with Prosperity Lending. Shelley?
Hi, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Happy to be here with you all today. Just wanted to piggyback off of our mortgage moment, our Monday mortgage moment, and talk about down payment assistance programs. Had a lot of questions regarding whether or not they're still available, and yes, they are. Although I know the Hope Brings You Home program is no longer available, there are still down payment assistance programs. And in fact, I wanted to highlight one of them, which is our Home at Last. Although it is in specific areas of Las Vegas and as well in Pahrump, wanted to highlight this because it allows you to have a higher income limit. So it'll let you go up to $135,000 for a conventional borrower, and there's no sales price limit. So obviously it will still bar the FHA or conventional loan limit. FHA loan limit at $355 and conventional at $510,400. But the income limit of $135,000 is a huge, it's $100,000 or $75,000 more than Home is Possible. So just wanted to share that with you, as well as to remind everyone, the teacher program is still available for Home is Possible. And remember, teachers are still essential, right? So as far as the employment piece, which has been somewhat of a fun thing for all of us to navigate in the mortgage industry, know that the teacher program is still available. They're offering $7,500 for down payment and or closing costs. And I checked the rate today, it's at 2.75 for that 30-year FHA mortgage. So a lot of different things. Still know that down payment assistance is available for everybody. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to one of your Prosperity Lending loan officers. And then I also wanted to share something that we're going to be doing for you guys on Friday for the happy hour. Still debating if it's going to be considered Cinco de Mayo, since Cinco de Mayo is in the middle of the week. But we are going to be hosting our first ever Prosperity Lending bingo! Yay! So make sure that you register before the actual event. So I think it starts at 5 o'clock. Email Team Shelley at prosperitylending.com so that we can send you out your bingo card. And then stay tuned for more updates as far as whether or not we're going to make it a Nacho Libre theme. Anyways, that's all that I got for the mortgage moment today.
Thank you, Shelley. And with that being said, we're going to bring Ellie Morris up to present the Spirit of Signature Award. Ellie, there you go.
Hi.
Welcome, Ellie.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, the Spirit of Signature Award, for those of you that don't recall, is an award we give out once a month to somebody who really exemplifies the spirit of signature, the giving, the caring that we all do. And this month, we are giving it out to Cheetah. Cheetah Swift Robertson is the gal that, yes, give her an applause. She's a giver, you know, in these tough times. Cheetah, I noticed, I've seen on Facebook, is spending a lot of time helping people, making masks for those of you who need them. And by the way, anyone that needs a mask, just let us know, because Cheetah will be happy to make one for you. So we're very thrilled to give Cheetah the award this month. Congratulations, Cheetah. Well deserved.
Thank you so much.
Oh, by the way, we will have her contact information on the comment section in case anybody does need to get a mask.
Thank you, Ellie. Or even just to reach out and congratulate her. So that was awesome. Way to go, Cheetah. We really love you and appreciate all the support and everything that you do. So next up, we've got stuff from Janet. Janet, unmute yourself and come on in.
Okay, good morning. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the same thing I talked about last week, and that's your MLS fees. They were due April 5th by close of business. The board extended your paying of your MLS fees to close of business tomorrow, May 1st. No, not tomorrow. God, today's Tuesday. Till Friday, May 1st. But here's the thing. We know a lot of you are really hurting right now and maybe not doing business. So the board is going to allow you to do a payment plan for your MLS fees. Now you're getting this news first because tomorrow, President Tom Blanchard of LVAR and MLS Chair Georgia Papero will be sending out an announcement, but you're getting it before then. So here's the way this payment plan works. You have to put up a credit card with the accounting department at LVR. They will charge you 4 monthly payments starting in May, June, July. I'm sorry, 5 payments, May, June, July, August, September of $75. And then your MLS fees are due again the 1st of October. Here's the thing, you have to go on that. Your credit card will be billed the 27th of the month. And if you back out, let's say you put up the credit card, you start paying, and then in July you go, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore, and you don't make any more payments or you cut off the payment plan, when you come back to MLS and LVR, you're going to be charged a penalty of $250. So I'm not sure how the details are going to work yet. The attorney's not drawn up the letter, last I heard, for you to sign saying, yes, I'll make $75 monthly payments. But if you don't do it by May 1st, you will be cut off of MLS on May 1st. Because here's the thing, on Monday after Friday, May 1st, we have to turn in CoreLogic, our agent count number, and we are billed based on the number of agents that we have with LVAR. So if you know you're not going to be working the next 4 months, if you say, I'm just going to sit back, wait till this all blows over, hopefully, then we urge you to drop by Friday so we won't be billed for you. The other good news is brand new agents, when your license comes into the office, you have 45 days in which you have to sign up with LVAR. That has been extended to 90 days at this point in time. So if your license has come in and it's been about 40 days and you go, oh, I've got to go sign up at LVAR, it's been extended 90 days. And that's all I have.
Well, thank you, Janet. And I think it's easiest if you can pay your dues, just pay your dues. I don't think you want to enter into this payment plan if you don't need to. So yeah, let's just get those paid so that we can continue to do business. All right, awesome. Thank you, Janet. She's being promoted to head bill collector. So make sure that you get those dues paid. You don't want Janet calling you. So, all right, with that being said, we're going to bring Chris Bishop up for the sales tip.
Hey guys, happy to be here from the sanctity of my kitchen again. I need to get out of this house. I'm going to be honest with everybody. But I wanted to share with you something that kind of interesting that happened the other day. I was coaching a brand new agent through their first listing agreement. And like many new agents, they were putting together the agreement because I asked them to try it on their own real quick. And then they sent it over to me to review. So I get the agreement and everything is perfect in its right place. But I noticed 2 things that could have been done differently. And that's what I want to share with you today. So the first one was the price. Agent has not seen the property. They have not reviewed the comps with the seller. They have not been into the home, but yet they created a listing agreement with a price in it without any conversation around it. And so my suggestion to you, and just my business practice, and I know many of the agents and brokers have different business practices, but I usually like to leave the price section blank and meet my client, or at least have an interaction, probably now through Zoom with my client over the phone or through the computer to talk about comps. Because it's hard to get a client to agree to a well-priced property if they've never seen comps and you've never had a discussion with them. And so one of the things I've noticed in the marketplace right now is we still, even with everything going on and all the issues to show homes, have a lot of overpriced properties. And it leads me to believe that agents probably are not having the hard conversation with their client. And I've heard many people say, wow, I just need to take a listing. I need to get a sign out there. I don't know any brokers or agents that are calling on overpriced listings just for the sake of showing them. So probably the best step to do is to make sure that you've pulled your comps, you've taken some time to have a discussion with your client on what the pricing looks like. And if you're like me, when I do my net sheet before I go out to the property, I usually base it on the worst case scenario. So if your property's worth $350,000, but you really want them to price it at $320,000, I do my net sheet at $350,000 because everything after that is better, and no one's going to be upset with getting more money. The second thing I noticed in the listing agreement was the compensation section. So again, this agent had not been out to the property. They had not talked to the seller. They had not really had any objections other than the fact of setting the appointment. And when I looked at the agreement, their commission was 5%. So my question to the agent was, before you've had any conversations or objections or issues or services or done anything, you've already agreed that your value, your service value for that listing is 5%. And so I asked the agent, how did you come up with that? And they said, well, we just kind of figured that, based on the fact that they were listed before, and based on the fact that their home didn't sell, and based on the fact that they could be someone that we know through a friend and they may give us some referrals, we just thought we'd put in 5%. And so my point to the agent was that you've established a value for a service that you haven't explained. It'd be like me going to my cable company and saying, how much for HBO? And they say $100 a month. Or there's a coupon where you can get it for 80% off, and now it's only $20 a month. I think the whole thing is I'd want to do some investigative work and some conversations before I just label the value that I bring to the table. So my standard of practice is, and I've said it before in my classes, is that before I talk to anybody, when I fill out that listing agreement, I put in a commission of 7%. Now, do I always get 7%? No, I wish it were true, but it doesn't happen every time. But the fact is that 50% of the time, if you're good with your presentation, if you're good handling objections, and you're actually ready for them to give you objections, and you're ready with the answers because you've been, that's right, role-playing and practicing them, you could probably overcome any of the issues that they have, and they would see the value with all of the things going on that you're willing to do to help them get their home sold, that they may pay you that 7%. So if that happened 50% of the time, you'd be way better off than just sticking in 5%. But I think the other point is that if they said no, we've heard other people do it for less, and you negotiated between the delta of 7% and the delta of 5% by halves, quarters, and a tenth, doesn't matter to me, you'd probably be better off than just sticking in a random number with no thought behind it. That's my word of the day from Chris. Help me get out of my home.
Thank you, Chris. Good tips. And one of the jobs of the broker is to help you make more money and to help you protect your commissions. And so this is a good tip from Chris. And if you need help with this kind of stuff, always reach out to us. Chris is bored. He's sitting at home and he's got a Zoom account and he's ready to help anybody that needs it. So, okay. He talked about the compensation in the listing agreement. The listing agreement has been changed. I don't know if some of you have gone on and actually seen this. I had not seen an announcement or a lot of hype on it, even though I was part of Forms Committee last year and there was discussion on it. It just all of a sudden appeared. So Vandana has been digging through this and has got some interesting points on it. We're also going to invite Chris and Todd into the discussion if they've got anything to say about the listing agreement. So Vandana, take it away.
Hey. All right. Happy Tuesday. I am just trying. I also, like Chris, need to get the heck out of my house. A lot of Zoom calls. I'm sure everybody is getting slightly zoomed out. It's okay. I've got Google Hangouts. So if you're tired of Zoom, Google Hangouts with me. We actually played Cards Against Humanity this weekend, but I know that's not what you're here to talk about. You want to hear about this new listing agreement. Who actually knew it was out there? Those of you that are in the audience, raise your hand. I can't see you, but it doesn't matter. You can see you. On the actual listing agreement, there's been several changes, no warning at all whatsoever, no white paper, no videos like they normally do on how the listing agreement's changed, but it has changed. You will notice that the spacing is a little bit different right here in page one. Page one, for the most part, just so you know, I'm just going to scroll through it really quickly. Nothing here has changed, right? Page one is the same. It looks the same, except when you get to the bottom here. Wait a second, you ask, where did the title insurance part go? It went right down to page two, and the spacing's all off. It's okay. I'm sure LVAR will figure it out. So if they bring up the title insurance, give a little space. Again, all of this is the same. Really quickly though, while we're on the topic of listing agreement stuff, and Chris had talked about the pricing and comps and doing CMA and having a conversation, I will tell you, Brandon on the Weekender had stated that there were some free classes being offered by NAR, and NAR is giving you free classes, one of which is the Mastering Pricing Strategies for the CMA, how to actually create a CMA. It's probably one of the best classes that I've taken because it walks you through adjustments, how to make them, where to make them, what you make them for. It talks about the different markets types, the different approaches that you can have, whether it's a cost analysis or a market expectation analysis. It talks about working with appraisers. It talks about how to actually talk to your client in regards to the CMA and the pricing strategies and whatnot. It is a brilliant class. It's a 6-hour CE online course that's offered through NAR. If you just go through the NAR website, you can log in there and then take it. There's 2 classes that are being offered for free. One certification, which is ePro, which I accomplished this weekend, and then the Mastering CMA or Pricing Strategies class. Now I will tell you, on that class, the final exam is a B, and it was horrible. I took it 6 times, 6 times. The first 3 times I was sober, the 4th time, not so much because I didn't care. The 5th time I took it with all the brokers, we failed by 1 question. And then finally at the sixth time I took it, I just did it and I sort of half-assed it. And guess what? I passed. I barely passed. I got a 75. So here's my challenge to you. Take the class, pass it. And if anybody passes it like with just one time, right? I want to see your score the first time you take it. Be honest about it. Honor system here. The first time you take it, if you passed it, you got 100%. I'm going to buy you dinner. I'm going to have it delivered to your house for you and your family personally. So all of you out there, please take the class. And if you need the handout, I have the student manual that'll help you through the final exam. I guarantee you it's a crap load of stuff that isn't covered. But again, dinner on me. Let me know if you make it. My phone number is 702-401-1404. Send me a screenshot of your certificate on the first try that you passed it with 100%. Okay, moving on to the listing agreement. That's why we're really here. So page 2, you'll notice the spacing here. Everything looks the same. There's not any difference on page 2. Where you'll actually see the differences starting to come about is in section 13. Section 13 used to be the sign section where it talked about could you or could you not place a sign on the property. Well, that's gone. They've moved it. It's not completely removed. They've moved it. Instead, they've moved the key box portion up here. That section looks the same. Rent and lease looks the same. Tax withholding looks the same. FERPTA declaration, they forgot to actually put a number 15 over there. Whatever. I mean, this is all, stuff. I guess they're beta testing it on all 15,000 realtors. All of this looks the same. And then voila. Section 18 is where you're going to see the change. Marketing and advertising. That first paragraph, the same. The second paragraph, and then right here where it says seller does or does not authorize to commence public marketing and advertising activities. And this is where the seller initials. So yes, more seller initials. You guys don't miss this because it is new. That's on the new listing agreement. It is required for you to have the seller to sign one way or the other. What gets confusing about this part, and Chris, Brandon, please jump in. Brandon used to be the chair for Forms Committee, as well as Todd, by the way. Brandon used to be the Forms Committee chair last year. And some of these changes were discussed in Forms Committee, and some of them were just popped in by the MLS attorneys, according to the CEO over at the association. So that second paragraph, seller acknowledges that prospective buyers and or other persons coming onto the property may take photographs, video or other images of the property. Seller understands that broker does not have the ability to control or block the taking of and use of images of such person. So this is interesting to me because, as all of you know, if you've taken my advertising laws class, you know that you can't just take pictures of someone else's listing and post it, right? You need to get permission from them in order to advertise their listing. But this particular section, this paragraph on its own says it's almost like it's saying it's okay, right? I mean, jump in here, Chris. What do you think?
Yeah, so I actually remember how this came about, but I think it was supposed to be changed a year ago and it got delayed a little bit. So I think that makes sense now.
But it's a great time to do it. It's in the middle of a quarantine with no warning, right?
Yeah, nothing else to do. I think that this streams from a number of lawsuits that happened. If you guys remember, Zillow was sued for, I think, about $8 million for misuse of copyright provisions to do with photos. And we saw a number of lawsuits that came up, of course, starting in California, that had to do with the fact of a seller not understanding all of the places that their home could be marketed once they agreed to list it on the MLS. And so from my recollection of this, it was an affirmation from the seller to understand that their property would be publicly viewed. Now, think about this. We actually have to have an affirmation to tell a seller who wants to sell their home and get the highest price possible that somebody may see it for sale. That's why this clause was put into effect. And I will tell you that these lawsuits weren't cheap. A number of them were pretty massive. I mean, 7-figure suits over the fact, not necessarily the agents, but the websites that were fed these listings. You do have to say in the listing agreement, I want my photos to be published. I want my listing to be published. Remember, it was multiple sections. It's probably still in there.
Yeah.
But the section just
It's under seller opt-outs. They're right here. Section 20.
So this is basically you're putting it on the MLS, but you'd opt out of it syndicating to any other sites. If they don't initial this, then you're just marketing it to the realtor community. Is that correct?
So it's no, what it's saying is that people can walk into your home. Hey,
No.
Mr. Oh, sorry.
On line 29, where it says does or does not authorize the broker to commence public marketing or advertising of activities.
Correct.
So if they do not, then you cannot syndicate this out.
Correct.
You can't put this on your website. You can't put this anywhere. The only place it can go is the MLS.
Well, and if you look at it, the funny thing is throughout the entire listing agreement, there's actually, if you see right here on line 33, seller may only authorize a sign if seller has authorized marketing advertising in section 18. And so you're going to see that language throughout the entire agreement in 2 other sections. Sorry, go ahead.
But remember, this same clause used to be in the 3 confirmation section.
Correct.
I agree to an AVM. I agree to public marketing. I agree to, it was public marketing of some type. All they did was pull it out because this section was the one that was litigated the most. You know, like certain people are protected, right? If you're if you're a police officer, FBI agent, someone that deals with criminal justice in some way, or work for the county or city, your address is usually protected, and those people don't want to be marketed out. They don't want people knowing where they live, that kind of thing. That clause was so that you could opt out. And like Brandon said, if I clicked it and opted out, you could not see my listing publicly on any of the sites. Ironically, call you up and say, I don't see my home marketed anywhere, and you opted out of the section. And what's crazy about this is, even though the listing agreement has the initial for it, a lot of agents would get confused, especially new agents never doing it before. They would go in and start checking these boxes and not know the correlation between the MLS input and the box on the listing agreement. But all they did is they pulled it out of that section, put it in with everything else, and it makes sense, but it's a little bit overkill.
So it's the advertising the property publicly commentary section, as well as the automated estimate value section. Those 3 are the seller opt-outs that you could have had, and so they removed the publicly market the property or syndicate the property, and now they've added it up here a year later.
But
Awesome.
it makes sense to me now. The section before that is saying, hey, your photos, if we advertise this publicly, these are the things that could happen. We have no control of your photos. So now you get to make a decision. Do you want it publicly marketed or not? So now that makes sense to me.
And you know, remember the photo scams that used to be out there where, and this is another thing we're seeing in the marketplace that we've had happen time and time again, is where someone rips off the photo that's on a public website somewhere and they illegally market the property for rent or for sale, and it's not really for sale. And sellers would be up in arms. How did you let this happen? You know, I can't believe that this occurred. And it's not the agent or GLVR or anyone else that did it. It's someone that went on a website somewhere where the property was marketed and they scrubbed that information and posted it somewhere else. And so it's also, you know, it makes sense. It's also a protection for that, because these are things we should be telling our sellers, you know, we shouldn't be telling them it's going to happen, but just understand that once the data leaves, you know, wherever you input it, it could go anywhere.
Right.
And, you know,
so you've got here, if you look in section 17 for multiple listing service, they've just added, most of it's the same, but they've added the different sections where like section 18, 19, 20, and 22 was also how they would treat any of the listings that you posted in the MLS or listed period. Okay, so then the sign, don't be afraid, because there it is. The sign section came down to section number 19 from 13. Seller opt-outs are the same from the last one, which from the previous listing agreement. So you've got your commentary section or the automated estimate, and then the seller cannot opt out of either one of those two. So that remains the same. And then when you go down, there are several new sections that have been added. Let's talk about this one for a minute. Office exclusive. Have you had a chance to read this, Brandon? My understanding is this came from forms. And then I was told by the CEO that this came from the MLS. Again, seller may or may not select this option if they did not authorize the marketing and advertising section 18. So these are all things that you have to remember because they reference back to it. Have you had a chance to review this?
So no, this did not come from forms. This would have come from the MLS. We did not talk about an office exclusive listing.
This, I think, comes from clear cooperation.
Correct. It is clear cooperation. So it's actually what Janet was talking about earlier. It is that the listing has to be inputted into the system within 1 business day of being able to publicly market it, which means that coming soon has been expired. But ultimately, clear cooperation says no matter what happens, right? So let's talk about this section a little bit more. Even if you take a listing, let's say it's not ready for putting it on the market, right? You have to have a coming soon, some form of language in coming soon, about coming soon in the additional remarks. If you don't, the only way, so the commencement date on the very top of this agreement on page 1, it says commencement date. In order for you to not have to put that listing into the MLS immediately within that 1 day, you'd have to get an MLS exclusion form notarized and signed by the client, by the seller. And if you don't have that, then you're in violation of this right here. Tell me, and so that has to be done, or there has to be some form of coming soon agreement in the additional remarks, in which case you still have to put the property in the MLS within 1 day. You don't get to just, oh, it's coming soon. And so therefore, if I take the listing today, it's coming soon May 15th. Now I've got 15 days to market it privately. You can't. You have to put it into the MLS, right? It must be in the MLS.
The whole reason behind clear cooperation, and whether you agree with it or not, and Brandon and I were actually directors that had to vote on this at the national meeting. The whole thing is to avoid brokers concealing listings and doubling them without it being cooperated fairly out to all brokers. And that's the bedrock principle of our MLS co-op section, is the fact that we all have equal opportunity to sell any listing that's out there. Now, the problem with this is that agents seem to be misunderstanding the difference between coming soon, actively for sale. The idea with coming soon is not syndicated unless you personally, as the agent, syndicate it yourself to a site that allows coming soon, like Zillow has coming soon listings, but it's not syndicated through our IDX feed. And the reason we created it was to give an opportunity for agents, realtors in our marketplace, to have access to listings that were in some series of availability. They were getting ready, they were going to be painted, they had someone that had no key, they had a seller that wasn't cooperative. I mean, there are all of these reasons when agents go out and take a listing that they're trying to get the listing on the market as fast as possible, and the seller's like, wait a minute, I'm not ready, I want to do this. And we saw a lot of people use exclusions, and a lot of people use T status, and a lot of people, you know, hold off on putting in. You can't take a listing today and say, oh, it's good 4 months from now, right? And have a valid contract that really works for any benefit. It just doesn't make sense. And so we created coming soon so that you could have 30 days to do whatever you want. You could have 30 days to put the price at $1 million when it's only worth 800,000. You could do all of those things. And then at the end of 30 days, it's active on the market. I also want to point out that if you're an agent that's out there that usually does a little preemptive marketing where you're getting everyone hyped and excited about your listing, if you do any marketing at all, saying that I have a listing and it's not on the MLS within 1 day, you're going to be in violation of the MLS policy, and you're going to be in violation of the NAR Code of Ethics, because that's the way that they set it up.
Right. So, all right. So that section we've pretty much talked to hell. So anything you do, whether it's, and it says it right in here, flyers displayed in windows, yard signs, digital marketing, or on any public facing websites, brokerage website displays, including the IDX or VOW, digital communications marketing, email blasts, multi-brokerage listings, sharing networks, and applications available to the general public. So if you put the home on the market in any other way but in the MLS, and your seller doesn't authorize it, then you're in trouble.
Just to be clear though, coming soon, if it is in the MLS as coming soon, you then can market it out everywhere as coming soon.
Correct. Correct. It just wouldn't syndicate to other websites because it's not going public. It's meant to stay within GLV or LVAR.
Yep.
All right. Use of listing content, nothing's changed there. That's all the same as how you can actually use it. Nevada law hasn't changed. Entire contract hasn't changed. Partial invalidity, attorney's fees, none of that's changed. Damages cap, which was something that actually came about 2 years ago. I love this thing. It's probably one of the best little sections that we've put into the contracts that protect our agents through the association. Warranty of ownership, foreclosure, notice of default, all of this is the same. Signatures, recommendations, right? All of this is the same. And then when you get down to almost the very last page, voila, section 35, time of essence. So time is of the essence, that whole section, oh, no, sorry, not that one, 36, they didn't actually title it. Section 36 says that the seller hereby agrees that once an offer has been accepted, the MLS status shall be, and here's where the seller gets to decide at the time of listing, whether they want the listing to go into under contract show or under contract no show. Now, the reason that this was put in, and Brandon, you were on Forbes committee when this happened, my understanding is it was to avoid having to do a change order form.
So that, I remember a brief discussion on this stuff, but yes, so your client is basically agreeing to something. And so if you put under contract show and you get an offer and it's going to be a no-show, you would need a change form at that point.
Can we talk about why those are like that? Because for those that were around before, we used to have C&P, right? And
contingent and pending.
20 years without any problem. And the reason why it worked, 50% of the agents out there right now have never been in a market that wasn't distressed or non-traditional. And we used to show properties in the MLS that were under contract, meaning that they had a home inspection contingency, they had an appraisal contingency, they had a loan contingency. And the idea was that you would go from ER to C to fulfill all your contingencies. And then once it was fulfilled, you would go to P because you're pending closing, right? You're pending completion of the contract, and then you go to sold. So that meant that under C status, when you have no listings in the neighborhood except for the one home that's available that's overpriced, but your client really likes the neighborhood and the floor plan, you could show a C status home and, you know, write a backup offer. And that's a whole nother argument and conversation. But the idea was that I could at least show them another property that fit their criteria. And we could let the listing agent know if you fail on any of the contingencies, we'd like to submit an offer. We wrote this up because Neil Schwartz, who was the president of the Real Estate Commission when it came out, believed that there should be some affirmation from the seller to know that their property will still be marketed or won't. And if you put it under contract show, that means that the average agent in the marketplace that's showing property would know, I could still show that listing to my client and I could set up an appointment even though it's under contract. If it's under contract no show, it's not going to be marketed anywhere. So like Patricia Delaney put in the comment, it's not going to show up on most sites under contract no show because it means it's completed most of its contingencies. But again, that's not how agents used it. They used it to fulfill a seller's desire not to be bothered. And I have sellers that have said, I don't want to show my house anymore. I'm tired of people coming through it. During the pandemic right now, I can understand people saying, it was bad enough to have to show it to get under a contract. I don't want to show it anymore. So at least you have this clause, but it could still always be altered by a change order.
Right. And so if, let's for instance say that the seller decides that they want the property to be under contract show after they've accepted an offer, that's fine. They can decide that there. And then similar to the example that I gave Brandon yesterday, let's say I have a listing, the listing gets an offer on it, it's all cash, closing in 5 days, no contingencies. Well, guess what? Now I need to go get an MLS change order form to change it, because there's no point of showing that property with a cash offer, no contingencies, closing in 5 days, right? And so then I would get a change order to change that, because the seller had indicated that they originally wanted the property to go under contract show, and that now I'd have to change it to under contract no show. And so you'd have to be a little bit more be a little bit more, I don't know what to say, like not necessarily as passive as you normally would be for contracts. You'd actually have to know what these timelines look like, what they say. This is another great reason to hire a transaction coordinator, because they can monitor all this stuff for you and tell you which, hey, you had it under contract show, you've got this now listing that or this offer that came in that is no longer needed for the under contract show. It's only 5 days, going to close soon. You need to get a change order, they can draw that up if you allow them to.
So this is just the contingent and pending. They just changed the name. Really.
Right. It is contingent and pending. Well, and we've talked about this many times. I mean, if you look at it, even if you change the contract to, let's say, a pending transaction in the previous time, there's never contingencies that are completely fulfilled until you're about maybe a day or two, until you get your clear to close from the lender, right? There's still a lot of contingencies that could creep up even after due diligence, home contingency, appraisal contingency. Technically, they could.
Well, there could be things that come up that cause it not to close, but technically you're supposed to be past those contingencies, which in theory, then the seller would be due the earnest money, which covers if all that stuff happened. But nonetheless, this was written this way, so it's clear for agents to understand. If it's under contract, no showings, or under contract, you can still show it. So. Yep.
And then, so moving on from that section that's not titled, but is section 36, we're going to 37, which is the 1031 exchange. So this was added, again, no warning, but it was added, and it makes sense that if the seller does intend to do or does not intend to do a 1031 exchange, then they have to let us know as brokers or agents to help them fulfill that portion, whether it's to cooperate in the exchange, sign some documents, move stuff forward, because this sometimes could take more than just the usual contract, right? It could be more for us as agents to do for the 1031 exchange than we originally signed up for, and so that was put in there. I'm hoping for that reason.
It's there mostly just to encourage the conversation, so that you ask the question. To me, I didn't see, most transactions on residential property don't result in a 1031. It's possible if it's an investment, but typically that's a commercial deal. But you should know, because there are some disclosures that you need to make and some timelines that seller needs to be aware of as they're moving through that process.
Yep.
Right, real quick before you move on, I think it's important to point out, because agents do this all the time, and it's understandable. At the bottom of every document that GLVera puts out, there's a trademark and there's also a revision date. And it's to let agents know the most accurate version of the listing contract. But I'm sure there are agents out there right now that have already completed listing contracts up to yesterday, or seeing this video. They don't have to go back and create a new listing agreement if it's already under contract, or if it's already under that listing agreement, correct? They would just need to know that if they create a new one after this happens, that they would always want to use the most accurate version, because it's protecting them for certain guidelines from the MLS, GLVR, state law, and all the other good people that it affects.
Yep. So in the forms, it'll actually show that it's 4/2020. Here, the revision date is showing as February 20. So just know that that's the most recent one. They do have the other one still no longer available, actually. But if you've ever done a listing agreement for a client, it's probably sitting in your forms, and the old one is probably sitting in your forms. Just know that you can't like if you were going to take the listing and then you didn't, and now you're, you know, redoing it, or you're relisting a property or taking it off the market, any of those, use the most current form. Good point, Chris. You will also notice that the time here has changed. So a lot of agents, what I've noticed as I'm reviewing some of these files in SkySlope that are being turned in, is that we have dates, but we don't have times. Times are important. It's important for the real estate division. So when you come up in front of the commission for any reason, those timestamps are going to be super important. You guys talked about this last week during the sales meeting. One of the biggest problems I'm seeing is that the duties owed is being signed after the listing agreement. Probably because for whatever reason they did the listing agreement because they wanted that done, and now the duties owed form is just sitting out there, and it was a requirement. They got a notice from us saying we were missing it, and so they had the client sign it. Well, guess what? If your file was ever audited by the real estate division, you'd have an automatic fine, because the duties owed must be the first dated and timed document by any client, buyer or seller, it doesn't matter. That duties owed has to be signed, dated, timed first, which is why the rest of these times are going to be extremely important. They want to make sure that you have enough time to discuss the duties owed form and then the listing agreement with the client. You don't want them just signing right? Most of us are sending these documents now, especially now digitally. So one of the things that we've always said, we've said it in previous sales meetings as well, is that if you simply call the client before you even send them the document and explain it to them, or when you send it to them, you talk to them about it, this timing will be different, and it will show that you've given yourself and the client enough time to understand the entire document. Really, you need to be explaining these documents to people. You can't just willy-nilly have them sign without explanation. Okay.
So can I add on something here? So
Absolutely.
this came to the forms committee from a commissioner, from Neil actually. And I had some issues with this at first, because I thought, well, all we're doing is setting ourselves up for
litigation or fines or violations.
For failure. But the way it was explained is, he says, this is your one opportunity to protect yourself, because the duties owed is supposed to be dated and timed, and this is too. So if this is dated and timed after, it proves that you did it after, right?
Right.
But he also said one of the good practice to do would be to send your duties owed in an electronic format by itself. Once that's signed and comes back, then you send everything else. You'll be ensured that there's that time, because they can track, apparently they can see how long you spent on each page, and most people just click through things. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to basically demonstrate that you didn't explain the duties owed. And one of your duties is to explain agency. So I'd just be cautious of that, and just make sure that you're filling these out properly. This, like I said, this came from a commissioner. So if these forms end up in front of the commission, I'm anticipating that blank is going to be very important to them. So make sure you fill them out.
Yep. So duties owed first, and then every other document after that, it doesn't matter. And if they can see how long you spent time on it, the one thing that you can do, and this is what I think Andrew and I talked about it at a sales meeting one time, is that if you've already discussed it with a client, let's say you've sat down, but you've told them what it says, and they have a copy of it, you have a copy of it, right? But now you just need them to sign it, which is fine. You've emailed it to them, you've talked to them about it. Just make sure that when you send the document, in the section where you're allowed to make comments, right? So as you send the document, you're allowed to write a letter within DigiSign or DocuSign or whatever system you're using. It says, per our discussion and review of the following, please sign accordingly, right? And then they can go through, and now you've proven that you've actually spoken to them about it. And you've got a tracking system to monitor that as well. All right, so moving on from page 8, now you'll notice page 9 is here. Page 9, the last agreement, it was 8 pages long, plus the 9th page was your the Nevada law stuff, right? All the disclosures, things like that they want to talk about. That form, that page is missing. Look, it's gone, no more. It is now 9 pages. And the reason that it's on 9 pages is because of this broker section. Whoa, you guys, look at what it says here on line 10. An exclusive brokerage agreement must be signed by the broker to be valid. Hey, guess what? If you don't have signatures from the seller and the broker, and here the designated licensee, it's not a fully executed document. You need these documents to be fully executed. Make sure that you're putting in the name of the broker and having them sign here, your name, you're signing here, all of the corresponding information, including license number for yourself as well as the broker. Without that, and look at, you've got the time here again. Without these little details, the document is not fully executed, and you could probably be in violation of marketing the home without a fully executed document. The other thing that's important to know is per NRS and NAC, you have to submit these documents back to the client. They need to have fully executed copies of everything. And if you're waiting until until the file closes to turn these in and get them signed, you're probably in violation. Nope, not probably, you are in violation.
And here's another thing, just you're sending this to the broker for signature through digital signatures. Make sure that you put in the blanks for the license number if you don't put the license number and the name, and so that we can fill it out completely as we sign it, because we can't go in and add fields after. So make sure everything that you need the broker to fill out is set up so that it can be done.
Yep.
Otherwise,
and then
you're probably going to have to reject it, which then you're going to have to resend it to your client and us again. So.
Yep, and you're going to notice that the brokers now are being a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more strict on what they are signing. We are looking for some of the details in the actual listing agreement, because we don't want you to turn the file into SkySlope and then have a compliant send it back to you saying that it was missing this, or initials are missing, or something's not, not there. We want you to have all of that ready to go and fully executed, so you're not dealing with compliance issues at the end. So the first, I did a video on this as well for the Broker Insight, but the client always signs first, then you as a licensee, and then the broker, right? We are the last person to sign these documents, whether it's the listing agreement or the buyer broker agreement. We want to be the last ones. And the reasoning behind that, and what I tell most agents, is that let's just say we've already signed the agreement and you're sitting down with the client trying to run through, for instance, the commission conversation that Chris was talking about earlier, and it's now 7%. Well, you can no longer say, I have to speak to my broker about that, because you've already gotten your broker's signature. It's there to help protect you, but really the order is the way that it needs to go, is the agent first, or sorry, the seller first, the agent next, and then the broker.
Yeah, and Ashley put in the remarks that one of the biggest things that they see is a listing agreement without the broker's signature. But if you look at line number 10 right there in bold, it says an exclusive brokerage agreement must be signed by the broker to be valid. So if you don't have the broker's signature on it, you're marketing a property without a valid listing agreement, and that's a violation too. So
yep,
sure
of NRS, NAC,
signatures.
MLS rules and regulations, code of ethics. I mean, you name it. You might as well get the book thrown at you. Sorry, Brad, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I know you're monitoring the chat while you're doing this as well.
No, you're good.
So, and then that's it. That's where it ends.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to dissect that, Vandana, and I think that was value for everybody.
I hope so.
Yeah, and just so you know, if you have more discussion on the agreement immediately following the sales meeting at 10:30, there is a virtual office, and so you can jump in there and discuss this with the brokers as well. So thanks again. And last, to wrap up the sales meeting, last but not least, one of my mentors and one of our coaches also for our new coaching program, Alex Szinegh. Alex, are you there? Unmute yourself. Come on, he's going to talk a little bit about how to get out of a rut. One of the things that happens when we stay home a lot through the quarantine is we get in our own head, and we could have a tendency to have our sales and everything else slump. So
I'm
Alex,
here. I'm doing social distancing. And I put on my mask so that I'm not going to infect any of you, okay? There is share screen. You guys can see my screen? Can you guys?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. So, with everybody locked up, we have a tendency to get into a rut. Now, this is like an hour presentation that I'm going to have to do in the next 8 minutes, because, we need to stay on track. So, how to get out of a rut. And sometimes in our life, we all got into a rut. We're in and out of rut sometimes. You don't even know we're in a rut. So, the first thing is, how do you know that you're in it? And you have to admit to yourself, if any of these things you have, then you're in a rut. Number one, no energy. You have a low energy level and you just can't seem to get excited, and you just kind of drag your butt around a little bit. Don't want to go to work. You hide. You get up in the morning, you really, because you're working from home, you go to the fridge, you eat something, you drink something, you maybe do a little Netflix, and you do a bunch of stuff, but you're not really going into work, okay? You're not on a schedule, you're not following a format. Next thing, you're irritable. Everything bugs you. And it's the stupidest little things that bug you, you know? And I've noticed myself, since we've been in this craziness, that I've had things bugging me that normally don't bug me. Stupid little things, you know, get in with my daughter a little bit, or my wife, and you know, you just kind of picking at stupid little things. Oh, you forgot to close the lid, you know, or you forgot to do this. It's just not even big issues, but you become irritable. You become withdrawn. You don't associate with people. Of course, you can't go out and associate with a lot of people, but you don't associate with people. You just back off, you pull back, you not on any calls. As a matter of fact, some people are not on this call here. They should be on it, but they're pulling back because, again, whatever. I don't really want to be involved. Excuse me, guys. I got a little bit of a cough. No, I don't have the virus. And this is a biggie: excessive eating, drinking, or sleeping. You know, like we've been getting up this in the morning, usually at 6:30, 7 o'clock. The other day I was up at 2:30 in the morning. I just couldn't go to sleep because so much on my mind. So I just started to work. But a lot of people are sleeping in. Well, you know, I don't have to go. I don't have to get dressed. I don't have to shave. I don't have to put on deodorant. I don't have to do anything. So I'll just kind of hang out. Eat too much. Like I said a couple of days ago, I said, you either become going to, after this whole event, when the virus is over, you're going to become a hunk, a chunk, or a drunk, or somebody said a drunk chunk. Okay. So if you have any of these symptoms, all right, this is Dr. Szinegh. If you have any of these symptoms, you may have the rut. Okay. How do you get out of the rut? There's a lot of different ways of getting out of the rut. Okay. You know, many years ago, somebody said to me, when you discover you're in a hole, stop digging. Okay. So that's good advice. So how do you get out of the rut? Well, number one, you need to rewrite your goals. And when I say rewrite your goals, I mean sit down, write out your goals, read them in the morning, read them at night, then tear them all up, throw them away, and next morning write them out again. Because if you just write out your goals and then you just read them, then you're not going through the action of writing them out again and affirming them to yourself. Okay, so you need to rewrite your goals every single day. Affirmations. Those are very powerful. And the way you state your goals as if you already have it. I was talking to an agent this morning, you know, wants to make $100,000 a year. I am making $100,000 a year. I have already made $100,000 a year. I have got 10 listings. I have 10 listings in inventory. I have this, I have that. I'm driving a brand new, whatever it is. I'm living in that house. I am laying by my pool in Costa Rica. You know, stuff like that. You know, you just kind of write these things out for yourself and affirm them. I am in possession of that thing that I really, really want. List of accomplishment. This is a biggie because sometimes you forget all the things we've accomplished. And it could be, people say to me, well, I didn't accomplish anything fantastic. You were born. That's an accomplishment. You learn to chew and eat food. Hey, listen, there are kids out there right now that are born that can't eat and they're fed with a tube. Something is wrong. Okay, so you should be, that's an accomplishment. You walked to the office, you walked to the store, you walked to the bathroom. How stupid would you look crawling on your hands and knees still? Okay, so you learn how to walk. That's an accomplishment. And then those are just the little things. And then you can put down, okay, I got a listing. Somebody said to me 25 years ago, if you can get one listing, you can get 1,000. So give yourself the credit of how many listings you've taken. I spoke with somebody this morning and you know how many sales they made. It wasn't a lot, but they already made a sale. You can make one sale, you can make 1,000 sales. Actually, I was looking at my statistics earlier. It was amazing, you know, how I tracked my statistics on how many listings I've taken and how many sales I made. And it was very, you know, they were very much in line with each other. So make a list of your accomplishments and read them. Look at them. Okay. Next thing, you need an action plan. The action plan, what I call a schedule. Now, a lot of people don't want to work by a schedule. Excuse me. They say it's restrictive. No, it's freeing. If you know you get up in the morning and you're supposed to be reviewing your information between 7 and 9 and have your list ready and who to call and what to do. And at 9 o'clock, you get on the phone and you start contacting people. Then you have a track to run on. It's an action plan. It's a map. It's a roadmap. The individual I was talking to earlier this morning, she said to me, I need a roadmap. Well, we're going to be a roadmap. You have to make yourself a roadmap, because all of a sudden when you get a roadmap, you look ahead and you go, wow, I know where I'm going. I know where I am. And I think I know how to get there. How else? Accountability. Get yourself an accountability partner. Get a coach, get a mentor, get somebody that holds you accountable. Hey, you didn't do that. Do it. And you need somebody to keep you on track. Many years ago, I said to an agent, you know, you don't seem to be very motivated. And he said to me, I'm waiting for somebody to motivate me. I said, what if they never show up? So you need to motivate yourself, but you also need somebody that you give your word to or what you're going to do, and they keep you on track. Massive action. 35 years ago, somebody said to me, massive action leads to massive results. Okay? You can't make 5 phone calls and expect to get a whole bunch of success. No, you got to make 500 phone calls. You got to make 1,000 phone calls. You got to knock on 1,000 doors. Don't just go and kind of like say, well, I did a little prospecting, you know, I called 3 people. No, massive action. If you're going to do something, hey, here's the thing. Think about it. You don't have any customers right now, so get some massive action. That's what I'm doing every day. I'm calling people. I'm following up with people. I'm getting it ready. All these people, I'm communicating with them. I'm texting them. They're getting ready to do something, because this thing is going to go away. This thing's going to pass. And then what are you going to do? That's when you're going to start your prospecting? No, you got to start now. You got to do it now. Matter of fact, my wife is out there right now taking a video tour of a house for somebody in California. I did that the other day for somebody in Canada. So you need to take some massive action. Next point on the next page. Hang around success. Hang around successful people. Talk to successful people. Of course, we can't, you know, get together in large groups right now, but find some people who have a good attitude, who are success oriented. People, hey, nothing stops you. If you're living in a $200,000 house, nothing stops you from getting in your car and driving into a neighborhood of the $1 million homes. Look at the homes. Or driving down the street. Why don't you drive past, if you're driving a Urus or a Yugo, why don't you drive past a Porsche dealership? You know, so hang around success. Talk to people that are successful. Make sure that you interact with people that are in positions where you want to get to. And stay away from the negative. And let me tell you sometimes the negative is your friends and your relatives and other people around you. Oh, you don't understand what happened to me last night. Oh, that's nothing. You should have heard what happened to me. Oh, shut up. Okay? What you need to do is you just need to get rid of the negative. Move on. I got a whole bunch of stories on that, but I don't have a lot of time. So I'm just telling you, stay away. Next point, track your progress. Keep track of it. I actually looked at the sheet this morning. You know, I have a sheet that I track my progress. It shows me how many calls I made, how many listings I've taken, how many appointments I've been on, how much money I made, all of that. It's that track. You got to track your progress. Hey, what would it be like if you went to the hockey game and there was no score? You don't know who's winning or losing. Wouldn't be a fun game. We got to keep track of our success. And then we are able to see how we're progressing every single day. Read, listen, and watch. Read positive books. Listen to CDs. I'm listening to audiobooks. You know, I've got them on my phone. I got them on my tablet. I got it in the car. I'm listening to that all the time. Watch good positive information. I like reading biographies. I read about successful people who have made it. So that's a positive thing you need to do. And number 11, move your body. Actually, that should be number 1. Move your body. If you're sluggish, if you're a slug and a sloth and you don't want to move, get out there. Go to the gym. They closed my gym. Okay, I can't go play racquetball. I love playing racquetball. I play almost every day. Close my gym. You know what? We scoured the area and we found outdoor racquetball courts. They don't have a ceiling. They don't have a wall. But you know what? We still play it. We just adapt. I also took up another game. It's called pickleball because there's a couple of pickleball courts down the road. I'm going to learn how to play that game. Got to move your body. Got to get out there. We walk on the beach. Get moving. And I know, Brandon, you love running and walking with your dogs. So that's fantastic.
One of the things too, Alex, if you don't mind, I'm going to say really quickly, I've heard if you move your body, your mind will follow.
Yes, absolutely. Got to move that body, okay? I wrote down a whole bunch of things here, you know. And here's something I wrote down. I just heard it this morning from John Maxwell. I listen to his stuff every single morning, A Minute with Maxwell. He said, how we view things is how we do things. It's very interesting. And last but not least, you got to remember, this too shall change. This will change. This will pass. I've been in the business for 36 years. I've seen the ups, the downs, the ugly, the good, lost money, made money, moved here, everything, all kinds of things happen. So the reality of it is, get out there, get moving, okay? You can lick this thing, you can beat this thing, and we make sure that we do a whole bunch of things now to get ready when this whole thing is gone, because you know what's gonna happen? You're gonna be sitting on your butt, and then when all of a sudden they open everything up and all the clients are coming, you've got no clients. So get moving. That's my message for you today. Get out of the rut, get somebody to help you, and if you are really needing some support and help, let Brandon know, and maybe you can get into the coaching program. Maybe, I don't know how much space we have left, but maybe we're gonna be able to let you fit. Any questions, any comments, any suggestions?
I have a comment, Alex. Thank you so much. It's always inspirational to hear you and to lay this out. These are things that I need to hear every day as well. And so this yeah, I needed to hear this morning. Thank you.
Yeah, I was actually talking to myself. You know, when you asked me what you're going to talk about, I said, you know, get out of a rut, because we have a tendency, and sometimes I have a tendency to look at the negative side of things and say, oh man, this really sucks. Why is it happening again? And then all of a sudden I caught myself. Shut up and get moving. So thank you guys. I'm glad you let me come on to this call today.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up today. Thank you everyone for attending. And like I said, if you want to jump onto the virtual office, we will be over there and we can discuss a listing agreement or anything else that you guys might have. So thanks again. Thanks
guys. Have yourself
Bye.
a fabulous day. I'm going out on the beach.
Make it a fabulous week.